coming at you live. It's Sunday afternoon.
Wow, what was that?
I thought it was pretty good.
It was, but it just was very surprising. I was very surprised by it.
That was my goal.
You sounded like a sports newscaster.
Perfect.
I was like, are we in a football field right now?
Even better.
Are you in the middle of a football field with a microphone?
Touchdown!
I don't think they say that like that. I don't know.
Sometimes. They're excited.
I mean, I guess, yeah, they're usually excited, but
Yeah.
I don't know if they
I
yell
watch
it like
a lot
that.
more football than you, so don't argue with me.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. I don't like football. That's
know.
fair. Do you want to do I'm Miara in that voice?
I'm Miara,
I'm Morgan.
and we are Mysteriosity.
That is so funny.
So,
Today is a collaboration.
love a collab.
A collaboration.
We haven't done one for a while.
We haven't. We have not done one in many moons. I think since like literally May. And it's basically August.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of moons ago.
Spooky Woods was the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Spooky Woods.
Episode 11, and you know what episode we're on now?
25.
25. We just hit one of our milestones.
I know.
On a Buzzsprout.
I love milestones.
Me
I
too.
love achievements. I'm such an achievement bitch.
Me too.
We'll hit our 1,000 achievement in August.
Woo! Can't see my arms going up and down, but that's what was happening.
That was the crowd going wild.
They sounded a little sick. They sounded a little like hoarse.
Oh, okay. Was it better the second time?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, cool.
The first time was a little phlegmy.
Okay.
Sound like a crowd with COVID.
Well, that would be a very dangerous thing. I would not like to be in that crowd.
Yeah, no thanks.
Okay, do you want me to go first since I have 3, or do you want to go first?
Sure, you go first.
Okay. Which one do you want me to do first?
Wendigo. I like the Wendigo episode in Supernatural.
So the Wendigo, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the Wendigo, in case you're wondering, is known by several names. It's known as the Wendigo, Wadito, Wakito, and Watigo.
Are these in different areas?
I would say so.
Yeah.
But basically, I would say so. Because each roughly translates to, quote, the evil spirit that devours mankind.
Great.
Yes, just what you want from a creature.
Love.
Hate it.
They hang out in the woods.
Yes, but so basically,
That's why I don't
Wendigos, you don't hang out in the woods because of Wendigos?
Yeah.
I don't hang out in the woods because of ticks.
Well, yeah. And mosquitoes.
Yeah, and spiders.
Basically just outdoors. I'm a very indoorsy girl.
That's okay. It's fine. But they are a mythological creature or an evil spirit that originates from folklore of the Plains and Great Lakes natives, as well as some First Nations. So, the Wendigo is part of the traditional belief system of a number of Algonquin-speaking peoples, including the Ojibwe, the Saulteaux, the Cree, the Naskapi, and the Innu. It's based around the East Coast forests of Canada, the Great Plains region of the United States, the Great Lakes region of the United States and Canada. So, Wendigos are often said to be malevolent spirits. They're sometimes depicted as a creature with human-like characteristics, and that they possess human beings. They're said to invoke feelings of insatiable hunger and greed, the desire to cannibalize other humans, as well as the propensity to commit murder in those that fall under its influence. So, when it comes to like Wendigo descriptions, there's some things that stay the same for all of them, and then there's some that kind of differ depending on where you are. So, generally, they're described to have glowing eyes, long yellowed fangs, claws, and overly long tongues. Sometimes they're described as having sallow yellowish skin, and other times they're covered with matted hair. They're said to have several skills and powers, including stealth and being a near-perfect hunter. They also know and use every inch of their territory, and some people say that they can control the weather through dark magic. They're portrayed as simultaneously gluttonous and emancipated from starvation. The descriptions kind of vary depending on who you're asking. So what's consistent between the cultures as far as like what they think about them is they're malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural, and they're strongly associated with the winter, the north, cold, famine, and starvation.
Okay.
So the Ojibwe, the Eastern Cree, the West Main Swampy Cree, the Naskapi, and also the Innu lore for those groups. The Wendigo are often described as giants that are many times larger than human beings, and that characteristic is absent from the myths in other Algonquin cultures. So that's one that differs. And in that lore, Wendigo would grow in proportion to the meal it has just eaten. So when it would eat a person, it would grow.
Oh.
So then they would never be full. So that's sort of why they're able to be portrayed as like gluttonous and thin, because they're never full. So they just keep eating. So they're seen as the embodiment of gluttony, greed, and excess, never satisfied after killing and consuming just one person. They're always searching for new victims. So in some indigenous representations, they're described as a giant humanoid with a heart of ice. A foul stench or a sudden unseasonable chill might also precede its approach.
Ooh. Creepy.
No, that's creepy. And then there's Basil H. Johnson, who is a Ojibwe teacher and a scholar from Ontario, and they gave the following description of a Wendigo. Quote, "The Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emancipation, its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones. With its bones pushing out against its skin, its complexion the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean and suffering from separation of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption."
Ugh.
End quote. Sometimes people say they're created when a human resorts to cannibalism to survive, and that can create a Wendigo. Some traditions say humans overpowered by greed could turn into Wendigos. And also that
Maybe that's what happened to the Roanoke colony. They turned into Wendigos.
I think I actually saw some sort of theory that
they
had to do with
eating each other, and then they
with-
became Wendigos.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I did see something about that. Some traditions also say that a human could turn into a Wendigo by being in contact with them for too long. So as far as what they can do and what different lore says they can do. So some lore says that Wendigos are unusually fast and they can endure walking for really long periods of time, even in the winter. But others say that they walk in a more haggard manner, like they're falling apart.
Like a zombie.
Yeah, like a zombie. But speed isn't necessarily a skill that it needs to capture its prey, because it doesn't pursue them really and then try to capture them and eat it. Instead, one of its creepiest traits is the ability to mimic human voices. So they use this skill to lure people in and draw them away from civilization. And then once they're isolated, they can attack them and then eat them. So they don't need to run fast and
They can trick them.
yeah, they just trick them and lure them in. As far as some sightings, in 2019, there were mysterious howls in the Canadian wilderness, and it led to some question on whether it was made by the infamous man-beast. And then one hiker who was present said, quote, "I've heard many different animals in the wild, but nothing like this." And then, have you ever heard about Wendigo psychosis? Well,
No.
it's in modern psychiatry. The Wendigo actually lends its name to a form of psychosis, which is characterized by symptoms such as an intense craving for human flesh and an intense fear of becoming a cannibal. So,
Can't say I've ever experienced that.
no, me neither. So in some First Nations communities, other symptoms can also be insatiable greed and destruction of the environment. And usually Wendigo psychosis develops in the winter by individuals who are isolated by heavy snow. The initial symptoms are poor appetite, nausea, and vomiting. And then they develop a delusion of being transformed into a Wendigo. And then people who have Wendigo psychosis usually see other people around them as being edible. But but then at the same time, they also have a fear of becoming cannibals. So, in recorded cases, the individual has usually been killed to prevent cannibalism from resulting, and some Cree folklore recommends treatment by the ingestion of fatty animal meats or drinking animal grease. Those that are being treated sometimes vomit ice as part of the being cured. So one of the more famous cases of Wendigo psychosis involved a Plains Cree trapper from Alberta named Swift Runner, and this happened in the winter of 1878. Swift Runner and his family were starving, and his eldest son died. They were 25 miles away from emergency food and supplies, so Swift Runner butchered and ate his wife and 5 remaining children.
Oh my God.
But given that he resorted to cannibalism when he was so close to food, and that he killed and consumed all of the remains of those present, it was revealed that it wasn't really a case of pure cannibalism, because it wasn't really a last resort. Like, he could have gone and gotten food. It was only 25 miles away. So because it wasn't a last resort, it was considered that he had Wendigo psychosis. And then he eventually confessed and was executed by authorities at Fort Saskatchewan. So that's Wendigo psychosis.
That's weird.
And that's all I have on Wendigos.
Nice.
That's my Wendigo story.
All right, well, I'm going to do Mothman.
Okay, I'm ready.
So we're going to start where it all began.
Where was that?
It was a dark story. No, I'm just kidding. The first ever reported sighting of the Mothman happened on November 12th, 1966 in Clendenin, West Virginia. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I'm sticking to it.
Sounded correct.
A group of grave diggers saw something huge fly over their heads and was moving rapidly through the trees. They described this as a brown human being. Anyway, the main legend comes from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. You ever been there?
No.
I have.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. So the Mothman in the legends is described as a winged humanoid. The coloration varies between brown and black, with 2 huge red eyes that glow or are very reflective. His wingspan is said to be between 10 and 15 feet, and he's said to be almost 7 feet tall.
That's a tall man.
Yes. Tall winged creature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Witnesses have said that he walks similar to a penguin, like a shuffle. So I'm just like picturing like I don't know if I could take him seriously.
I wonder why.
Maybe he just prefers flying, so when he walks weird. You know what I'm saying?
So, I suppose. But I think about penguins and how little their feet are. And how little their feet are, and that's why they have to shuffle. So
maybe he has
little feet?
Maybe he has pizza feet. I don't know.
That's really funny. That's a funny tie-in, because the Jersey Devil was on all of the lists that I was looking at when I was picking these.
So 3 days after the first sighting, 2 couples described seeing a white-winged creature about 6 or 7 feet tall that was just standing in front of their vehicle. 2 of the eyewitnesses described this being to the local newspaper, the Point Pleasant Register, as having bright red eyes, about 6 inches apart, a wingspan of nearly 10 feet, and apparently its urge to avoid the bright lights of their car.
It's like a deer.
Right. They also stated that the being could fly at very high speeds, possibly as fast as 100 miles per hour. While chasing them in their car, they went really fast to get away, and they reached almost 100, and he was like keeping up with them.
Don't like that.
It wasn't as quick on the ground, though. They even went as far to say it was rather clumsy on its legs.
Well, yeah, because he's got pizza feet.
If you shuffle like a penguin.
He's got pizza penguin feet.
One of the witnesses stated, if I had seen it while by myself, I wouldn't have said anything, but there were 4 of us who saw it, because they're like, people are going to think I'm crazy.
Right.
Over the next year, more and more sightings were taking place in the Point Pleasant area. 8 more sightings were documented in just 3 days. This included 2 volunteer firefighters who said they saw a very large bird with large red eyes. And then Newell Partridge was a resident of Salem, West Virginia, and he claimed that he saw strange patterns appear on his TV one night that was then followed closely by a weird sound just outside his home. Looking outside, he saw 2 red eyes looking at him. He described them as looking like bicycle reflectors. After this instance occurred, Partridge's German Shepherd Bandit disappeared.
No, not Bandit.
I'm pretty sure he ate Bandit.
That's not okay with me. I was cool with this Mothman, but I'm not anymore.
And then over the next 13 months or so, there were over 100 sightings of the Mothman. A lot of witnesses said they were told to not speak about the Mothman by the men in black.
Oh.
Fun Ohio fact. Mary Heyer was a journalist for the Athens, Ohio Messenger, and she covered the sightings of the Mothman in Ohio. Her first article was entitled "Winged, Red-Eyed Thing Chases Point Pleasant Couples Across Countryside," because it's pretty close to there.
To the border.
And Heyer also ended up working alongside paranormal journalist John Keel, and they covered the Mothman together. So, shout out to Athens, Ohio, our alma mater. Anyway, so there's some speculation of what the Mothman is. Dr. Robert L. Smith, who was an associate professor of wildlife biology at West Virginia University, attributed the large flying being to be a sandhill crane.
Nah.
Sandhill cranes are said to be almost as tall as an adult male and has bright red flesh around its eyes. Many people found this theory to be compelling, especially since the creature is described as bird-like. They think that the crane may be deformed, though, because in that area they refer to it as the TNT area. There are bunkers there that were once used for manufacturing ammunition and dynamite during World War II. They believe these bunkers may have released toxic materials into the wildlife preserve nearby, possibly affecting the animals that reside there.
That makes me sad.
Skeptic Joe Nickel thinks that the Mothman is actually just owls because of how their eyes shine.
Nah.
I'm like, okay, what about the 7 feet?
Owls actually don't have that.
Right,
I don't know if you've seen one.
They're not that large. None I've ever seen. Another theory is that the Mothman was created as a prank, and the press just ran with the story, creating hysteria among the locals. And the Mothman legend also is reminiscent of other demon archetypes that appear when people experience sleep paralysis.
Interesting.
But, like, if they're driving, I'm hoping they're not falling asleep, so...
Yeah, driving and sleep paralysis aren't two things that really tie together very often.
Right. Basically, what they're saying is that the Mothman is nothing more than typical human fears pulled from people's unconscious and attributed to real animal sightings, including inducing panic.
Nah.
A folklorist and educator, Rosemary Hathaway, states that in West Virginia, there is a long-standing tradition of storytelling. She feels that cryptids are just a more current form of a ghost story. She also speculates...
Speculates.
She also speculates that cryptids such as the Mothman serves as cautionary tales, and she believes that it's an indicator of respect small town people have for the natural world. Which I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess.
But, nah. Anyway.
But, nah.
Some other possible paranormal explanations. People are like, aliens, UFOs, angels. What the fuck?
Angels?
Angels or demons or a blood curse.
Oh.
Locals think it could be a blood curse placed upon the town by Chief Cornstalk. He and his son were murdered in this area.
Okay.
Precognition. They're saying, is the Mothman the cause of disastrous events? Which a lot of people think that he either is the cause or he's just a warning before disastrous events occur. And that brings us to the main sighting, which was the Silver Bridge collapse. Have you heard of this?
No.
You haven't? Okay.
No.
Well, I've seen it, and I've driven across the new one.
Oh.
Well, I haven't driven across it, but I was in a car that drove across it.
You were driven across it.
I was driven
if you
across
will.
it by my grandfather.
He was doing the driving.
Yeah. So on December 15th, 1967, just over a year since the Mothman was first seen, the traffic was really bad on the Silver Bridge. The Silver Bridge was built in 1928, and its purpose was to connect Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio. The abundance of cars on the bridge placed a strain on this bridge. It was never meant for that amount of weight. Because when the bridge was built, cars were much lighter, with Model T weighing around 1,500 pounds compared to 1967, most cars weighing around 4,000 pounds. And with the traffic backing up like that, the bridge couldn't hold it.
That'd be a difference in weight for sure.
An eye-bar, which was a 55-foot-long section of steel, 2 inches thick and 12 inches wide, at the top of the bridge on the Ohio side cracked, which led...
Final destination.
Yeah, right. Which led to the chain snapping, and the bridge fell to pieces, sending cars and passengers into the Ohio River.
No.
46 people died by either drowning or being crushed by the wreckage. Many people claim to have seen the Mothman right before this happened.
Weird.
Yeah. So, kind of like a little, what about the present day with the Mothman? So, in 2006, Jeff Wamsley, who grew up in Point Pleasant, opened the Mothman Museum. The museum features police reports and witness accounts along with a lot of Mothman's history. The Mothman also stands as a chrome-polished statue at 12 feet tall, complete with huge steel wings and red eyes in the town.
I have seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen a picture of that.
Every year in September, there's a Mothman festival in downtown Point Pleasant that draws huge crowds. The Mothman Festival began in 2002 and is held on the third weekend every September.
I feel like we should go.
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, that's not that far away.
No, it's literally like 2 hours.
Exactly.
The festival has a wide variety of vendors, guest speakers, live music, food, and events.
See?
It's my kind of thing.
Exactly.
And it's during September, which is not that hot during September.
Exactly
typically.
again.
Point Pleasant has become a prime destination for dark tourism. Tourists are given the chance to solve the mystery of the Mothman and can take home Mothman memorabilia, crafts, etc.
Etc. See?
Yeah.
That's
That's
what we'll be doing in the third week of September.
That's right. That was the Mothman.
That was the Mothman.
Yep.
Wow.
That's what I got.
The Mothman.
The Mothman.
With the penguin pizza feet.
Yep. But very large wings.
Very large wings.
That's probably why he walks weird, because he's holding up the weight of his wings.
I wonder what his face looks like.
Creepy.
I wonder if he has, like, buggy eyes.
Probably.
Like
a moth.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't like moths.
Moths are freaky.
They're really freaky.
They dart at your face.
They are so spastic, and it freaks me out.
Same.
Like, that's, like, moths are, like, so non-threatening, but they're so spastic.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't even know where you're going. How am I supposed to know if you're going to fly at my face and land on my eyeball?
You don't know what's going to happen.
They don't know. We don't know. No one knows.
No.
I hate it.
Yeah, me too.
I hate everything about it. The next one I have is the Kraken.
The Kraken.
Yes, the Kraken. So, the Kraken is obviously most people know about a Kraken. And I'm not really sure if it counts as a cryptid, but I don't care. It was on the list and I love Krakens. So, they're colossal sea monsters and they're mostly said to live off of the coast of Norway and Greenland. Greenland.
Either.
What? Why am I overthinking that? Greenland. And the Kraken is you just said either way. Greenland. We're just going to move on from that. So Kraken is the most common name to find in literature, but there's also different variants. There's the Krak, the Kraben, the Kraxen, the Sky Kraken, and the Crabfish. In case you're wondering. So the sheer size and the fearsome appearance make it the most common ocean-dwelling monster in fictional works. Because, I mean, come on. Everyone's always freaked out by the ocean and what's in the ocean.
It be the Kraken.
Yeah, and you got to think about, like, the creepiest thing you can think of down there, and it's
something very large with tentacles.
Exactly, you're going to think of the Kraken. It's said to be over a mile long, and so that makes it one of the largest...
Holy shit!
If not the largest cryptid that has ever existed.
God, that's scary.
Yeah, so it has many arms and bulbous eyes, though over the years Krakens have been depicted in a number of ways, obviously, because it always depends. So in earlier descriptions, they're actually described more as, like, more crab-like than octopus-like, and... They generally possessed traits that were associated with large whales. But then obviously it's kind of
if they're like
shifted.
crab, they're probably tasty. I love me some crab.
Okay, well then you could argue that they are kind of like octopus and squid, which like calamari. Exactly.
That sounds good.
Think of how much calamari you could have from a Kraken.
I just love seafood.
That would be so much calamari.
That would be a lot of calamari.
could fill, I don't even know.
It's a mile long.
I can't even put it into like a thing of how much it could fill.
A lot.
A lot. It could fill like a football stadium of calamari.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my description. That's what I've decided. So, obviously this has shifted then, like from being crab-like and having traits of whales to having the giant tentacles that envelop and capsize ships.
Yeah.
So ships would sink, and the beast was then said to eat those on board or let them drown. And if the whole strategy failed with the, grabbing the ships and sinking them, which I don't really know how that could fail, but maybe like if it just wanted like a different strategy, like it was feeling different, feeling a little bit like a little feisty, sometimes they
like, I want to change it up today.
Exactly. We can't do the same thing every single day. That's ridiculous. So another strategy that it allegedly has is swimming in circles around the ship and creating a fierce maelstrom.
A maelstrom, yeah.
To drag the vessel down.
That's scary.
I
think that's scary. That's scarier than it breaking the boat in half.
I do too. I agree.
Because you're getting sucked up by the ocean.
Exactly, and you're watching it circle you and you can't do anything about it.
That gives me the heebie-jeebies.
You're like, oh, it's doing its thingamabobber, but you're like, but what do you do about it? You can't
Wasn't
do anything.
the Kraken in the story of Jason? No, Perseus?
There's a Kraken in something.
Perseus, when he saved whatchamacallit on the stone.
So, the 13th century old Icelandic saga of Orva Ardris tells the tale of two massive sea monsters. One of them is called Hafgufa, and the other one is called Lingbacker. And Hafgufa is believed to be a reference to the Kraken, because it's the greatest monster in the water, and it swallows men and ships and whales and everything that it can reach.
Oh, wow.
It's submerged both by day and night together, which is very poetic-y. And when it strikes up its head and nose above the surface, then it stays at least until the turn of the tide. So the history of the Kraken also goes back to an account written in 1180 by King Sverre of Norway. So
Norway.
The legend might have originated from sightings of real giant squids that have estimated to grow up to 100 feet in length, including tentacles. So these creatures normally live at great depths, so they're not often seen at the surface, but they have occasionally been seen at the surface and have attacked ships, apparently. So some of the traits of a Kraken resemble undersea volcanic activity, including bubbling of water, sudden dangerous currents, the sudden appearance of new islets. It's also worth mentioning that the most curious piece of folklore about the Kraken is the belief that the amber, which is a fossilized tree resin thing situation, I don't know, found on the beaches of the North Sea was the monster's excrement. So, there's that. So now we're going to talk about some stories.
Quit shitting on the beach.
Exactly. So in 1830, Tennyson produced The Kraken. I'm going to read it, okay, because it's short.
Okay.
So,
is it a poem?
It's like a poem.
Oh, I love it.
So,
I'm excited.
Below the thunders of the upper deep, far, far beneath in the abysmal sea, his ancient, dreamless, uninvaded sleep, the Kraken sleepeth, faintest sunlights flee. About his shadowy sides, above him swell huge sponges of millennial growth and height, and far away into the sickly light, from many a wondrous and secret cell, unnumbered and enormous populi, winnow with giant arms the lumbering green, there hath he laid for ages and will lie, battening upon huge sea worms in his sleep, until the latter fire shall heat the deep. Then once by man and angels be seen, in roaring he shall rise, and on the surface die. That's the poem.
I liked it.
And then a famous story about the Kraken happened in 1873 in Newfoundland and was recorded by a local minister. So here's what happened. Here's the tea.
Ministers don't lie.
So two fishermen were out on a small boat on the 26th of October of that year, which was 1873, near the eastern end of Belle Isle in Conception Bay, which is about 9 miles from St. John's. So they observed an object floating in the water a short distance away, so they rowed towards it because they thought it was like the debris of a wreck. So they're like, let's check this out. But then when they reached it, one of them struck it with his gaff, which I'm assuming maybe is like an oar. So he struck it, and then it immediately showed signs of life and shot out its 2 tentacle arms as if to seize its antagonists. And then the other man, whose name is Theophilus Picot, was very alarmed, and he severed both of the arms with an axe that lay on the boat.
Oh.
And then it moved away and ejected a quantity of inky fluid, which darkened the surrounding water for a considerable distance. And then they went home, and they said that they thought it like was 60 feet in length and 10 feet across, and declared that when the fish attacked them, it reared a parrot-like beak that was as big as a 6-gallon keg.
Huh.
So
interesting.
So yeah, apparently, so the minister was kind of like, okay, sure, maybe. I'll record this for you. This maybe could have happened. He was able to obtain from the fisherman a portion of one of the tentacles. So, you know, they had like proof, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But, I mean, probably if we're being realsies, if we're being like realistic, if we're really like thinking things through, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's probably just a squid and not like a giant kraken, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But who knows? You don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Like the Meg.
Exactly like the Meg. You don't know what's down there.
Yep.
There could be giant krakens in the seas.
Yep.
We don't know. That's why the ocean's freaky.
Yep. No thanks.
The ocean's super freaky.
Yeah.
So that's what I have. That's the kraken.
The Kraken.
The kraken.
The Kraken. Okay, I'll move on to mine.
That's the kraken tea.
And no one will be surprised what my last cryptid is because of how obsessed I am with the Yeti.
Oh my gosh, it's a Yeti.
With a baseball bat.
And a crab fork.
Yeah, can't forget that crab fork.
Okay, no, but actually it's a real
Maybe
Yeti.
he eats krakens. With his crab
calamari.
fork. He's got good taste.
Okay.
Anyway, so a Yeti is another name for an abominable snowman. Yetis are described as a large creature that walks on 2 legs, said to live in the mountains of Asia. It is also said that they live under the Himalayan snow line. More specifically, Yetis are said to be very muscular in build, covered in dark gray or reddish-brown hair, weighing anywhere from 200 to 400 pounds. So, like, the way shows make them out to be, like, just white.
I was going to say, I thought they were white.
Yeah, that's just another speculation saying that, like, that's how they camouflage with the snow and stuff.
Which
but
makes sense.
most people say dark gray or
It does make sense.
It does.
Though, you know,
maybe
reddish
they're covered
brown,
in snow.
reddish brown would, like, blend in with trees. So
Right.
there's also that.
Compared to North America's Bigfoot, a Yeti is relatively short, standing on average around 6 foot tall. Bigfoot's a lot bigger. In Tibetan lore, there are 3 different varieties of Yeti. The Nyalmo has black fur and is the largest and the fiercest. The Chuti stands around 8 feet tall and lives about 8,000 to 10,000 feet above sea level. And then the Rangshimbombo has reddish brown fur and is around 3 to 5 feet tall. He's just a little guy.
Just tiny.
He's just a little guy. I thought this was really cool. Every continent has their own form of a Yeti, except Antarctica, obvi.
What do you mean, obvi? That seems like they're seen.
Yeah, but, like, there's not people there to see them.
That means they're probably really vibing.
Maybe they have a lot there.
Exactly. That could be their home base.
Australia calls their 8-man Yowie. China, they call them Yeren. Scotland, Fairlace Moor. Sumatra, Orang Pendek. Brazil, Mapinguari. Russia is Almasty. And North America is Sasquatch, aka Bigfoot. So they're all kind of in the same family. So the legend of the Yeti. Nailing down an exact time of when the Yeti legend began is difficult to say because it's been around for like a really long time. The Yeti was a part of the pre-Buddhist beliefs of some Himalayan people. The Lepcha people, who are the indigenous people of Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, Darjeeling, and West Bengal, worshipped a glacier being as a god of the hunt called Chu Mung. In traditional Lepcha tales, after one of their hunters kills a deer, they perform a ritual upon the animal for chumung. They would cut off one hoof, ear, and the tongue. They would remove the kidneys and heart, and then drink some of the deer's blood while it's still warm. Then they take those pieces of the deer and wrap them in leather and offer it to the god of the hunt, hoping that it pleases him and that they will have a successful hunt next time. Ancient belief also states that a kill left in the forest overnight will be claimed by the Yeti or Chumung, who will then bring it back to life. This is why they remove pieces of the animal, because belief states they can only bring back creatures who are whole. The Bon religion, who were mostly of the Tibetan region, believed in a being that was depicted as an ape-like creature who carried a large stone and made a whistling swoosh sound.
Swoosh.
Swoosh. The Yeti is a character that appears in many ancient legends and folklore of the Himalaya people. Usually the Yeti is attributed to danger. The moral in all stories of the Yeti is often warning people to avoid dangerous wild animals and stay close within their community. Fun little aside about the Yeti, Alexander the Great demanded to see a Yeti when he conquered the Indus Valley in 326 BC. Unfortunately, the locals told him they were unable to present a Yeti for him due to the creatures not being able to survive at that low of an altitude. In 1921, Henry Newman, who was a journalist, interviewed a group of British explorers who had just returned from a Mount Everest expedition. The explorers told Newman that they had discovered some very large footprints on the mountain. The guides told them it was the Mito Kangmi, meaning man, bear, snowman. Newman actually mistranslated Mito to mean filthy, so then he thought abominable was an even better descriptor, thus bringing the abominable snowman term to life. In 1942, a researcher, Myra Shackley, wrote about two hikers who reported a sighting. The hikers gave a very specific description of what they saw. They stated they saw two black specks moving across the snow about a quarter mile below them. The height was not much less than 8 feet. The heads were described as squarish, and the ears must lie close to the skull because there was no projection from the silhouette against the snow. The shoulders sloped sharply down to a powerful chest, covered by reddish-brown hair which formed a close body fur, mixed with long straight hairs hanging downward. Myra Shackley also wrote about another sighting where the person described seeing a creature about the size and build of a small man. The head covered with long hair, but the face and chest not very hairy at all. Reddish brown in color and bipedal, it was busy grubbing up roots and occasionally emitted a loud, high-pitched cry. In 1951, a British explorer looking for an alternative route up Mount Everest named Eric Shipton found an unknown footprint appearing to be humanoid. In 1960, Sir Edmund Hillary, who was the first man to climb Mount Everest, also searched for evidence of the Yeti existing. He found what was claimed to be a scalp of a Yeti. But scientists later proved that this was only a hide from a siro, which is similar to a goat in the Himalayas.
I don't know. I think it was a Yeti.
Could have been. In March of 1986, a hiker, Anthony Wooldridge, was hiking in the Himalayas and saw what he thought to be a Yeti. It was standing in the snow about 500 feet away from him. He said it didn't move or make noise, but he saw tracks in the snow that seemed like they led right to the figure. He ended up taking 2 photos of the figure. The photos were analyzed later, and it was proven that they were genuine and there was no tampering with it. Although the photo hadn't been tampered with, people went to the same spot Wooldridge went and claimed that what Wooldridge saw was just a rock formation in a humanoid shape. You can actually see that. We'll post that picture because it's out there. In 2007, American TV show host Josh Gates claimed he found 3 mysterious footprints in the snow near a stream in the Himalayas. Locals were skeptical and believed what he saw could be attributed to bear tracks.
I don't know.
Nothing else was ever found out about these prints, but they are on display at Disney World.
Disney World.
Isn't that kind of random?
That's so random.
Animal Kingdom. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if that's where it's at.
Maybe.
In 2011, the Russian government took interest in the Yeti and organized a conference of Bigfoot experts in Western Siberia. One of the researchers and biologists, John Bindernagel, what a name, claimed that he believes Yetis build their own nests and shelters out of twisted tree branches. Bindernagel's group said they were 95% sure that the Yetis existed based on some gray hairs they found in a moss in a cave. Jeff Meldrum, who is a professor of anatomy and anthropologist at Idaho State University, says that he believes Bender Nagel's evidence is a hoax. Meldrum is a Bigfoot believer, and he said that the twisted tree branches that made the Yeti's supposed shelter were fakes because when analyzing it, there is clear evidence of cuts made by a tool. Also, Meldrum believed that the location of the shelter did not make any sense because it was found located just off a well-traveled trail and not in a remote area. Meldrum believed that the whole Russian expedition looking for proof of the Yeti was a publicity stunt to increase tourism in the impoverished coal mining region. Which, I mean, I get what he's saying about the shelter and stuff, because, like, if nobody has, like, officially discovered a Yeti, why would they just have a shelter right off the main path, you know?
Yeah, literally, they would not.
They would be hiding better than that.
Literally, they would be.
So then in 2013, Oxford geneticist Brian Sykes began to dive more into DNA samples. Sykes reached out to Yeti believers and institutions all over the world claiming to have physical evidence that Yetis really exist. He received 57 samples ranging from hair, teeth, and tissue. 36 of these samples were chosen for DNA testing that would be compared with genomes of other animals in the database. Most of the samples ended up being from cows, horses, and bears. 2 of the samples were actually found to be a 100% match for the jawbone of a Pleistocene polar bear that lived sometime between 40,000 and 120,000 years ago. This was around the time when the polar bear and the brown bear were separating as their own species. So that kind of makes me wonder, too, if, like, people were used to seeing brown bears, but then the polar bear, like this Pleistocene bear, was starting to, you know, and they're like, oh, it's a Yeti. And then it just kind of carried on its own thing.
That could be. That would be logical.
There's not distinct proof of their existence, obviously. And the Sherpas, who are the people who live high up in the mountains of Nepal, believe that as the sun rises, the Yeti grow bigger and stronger, and anyone who sees them will suddenly grow weak and lose consciousness.
Oh.
So they're saying, well, that's why we've never, like, actually seen them and interacted with Yeti. People still believe because as a society we are very disconnected from nature and we experience a deep wanting to believe in mysteries like the Yeti. So that's another reason why they're like, maybe that's why it exists in the first place.
That could be. It
kind
could
of
be.
like a departure from reality. So this is kind of cool. In 2003, Bhutan set aside a 650 square kilometer protected area called the Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary. They did it with the help of a $700,000 grant from the MacArthur Foundation through the World Wildlife Fund. The specific reason given for doing this was protecting, in quotes, the habitat of the Yeti known in Bhutan as the Magori or strongman. Their official site now says they protect even the mythical Yeti. They also protect the habitat of species like barking deer, Assamese macaw, snow leopards, Himalayan black bears, and even the red panda.
Oh, red panda.
That's all I got for the Yeti.
Wow. I love Yetis.
Me too, especially with baseball bats.
They're the best ones.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And they have made some really good Yeti movies.
Have they?
Yeah. Have you seen Abominable?
No.
It's really cute.
It's cute?
Yes, you should watch it.
I don't really like cute movies.
Well, I do. I like animated movies, and it's really cute. Also, Smallfoot is a good movie.
I thought we were talking about, like, horror movies with Yetis, not like...
No, I like the cute ones.
Okay. Okay, we're not on the same page.
No.
We're on different pages.
These are cute movies.
We're reading different books.
Smallfoot is one, and they sing, and
I gotta go.
Zendaya does one of their voices.
I gotta go.
It's great.
I'm sorry, my phone is ringing.
Channing Tatum doesn't.
I'm sorry, my taxi's here. I gotta go.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.
I'm ready for your last one.
Well, that leads us to our last cryptid of this episode. And it is the Goat Man.
The Goat Man.
The Goat Man.
Not to be confused with the Jersey Devil.
I'm sorry. I hurt myself. But yes, not to be confused with the Jersey Devil. The Goat Man,
She's a hot mess.
in case you didn't think this is a goat-human hybrid. So,
but I didn't want to assume.
Well, you could have assumed. You would have been a correct lady. But
It's commonly claimed to have a human face, but with a body covered in hair. But then there's some descriptions that just call it a hairy humanoid, and then some say that its lower portion is more similar to a goat's downstairs business.
It's kind of like that.
Centaur. What?
No, centaurs are horses, aren't they?
Yeah.
Starts with an F.
Fawn?
Yeah. And there's another one, too.
A satyr?
Yeah.
It's also usually described as at least 7 feet tall.
Wow.
And many people who claim to have seen the goat man state that these creature squeaks noisily, moves sneakily, and lurks in the night.
Ooh, that's creepy. I don't like that.
So there are many,
Where is this at?
lots of places.
Okay.
We'll get into that. So there's lots of versions about how the goat man came into existence and started haunting people. And a few people, some believe that the goat man is a descendant of the Greek mythological character known as the satyr, as we already were talking about.
Right.
And the fawn, which, see, look at that. I actually had both of these in my notes. I just didn't notice. Was notorious for having a high sex drive that he often abused by raping or molesting Greek nymphs.
Yeah.
And some believe that the goat man was a demonic entity that was summoned by a witch. So, lots of different thoughts about how it came about. And then some claim it's relatives with the New Orleans chupacabra-like cryptid called the Grunch.
The Grunch.
Yes.
Not to be confused with the Grinch.
No. So, there are often urban legends of them killing young couples parked in cars or scouring neighborhoods and killing family pets.
Aww.
A huge, giant escalation that I didn't need were the tales of them breaking into houses and raping its victims.
Oh, gee.
And many attest from the areas that it haunts that it does not matter if you are a man or a woman, quote, it will overtake you and rape you nonetheless, unquote.
Oh, God.
Which I didn't need that to be a part of this, but...
I feel like I'm going to have nightmares.
Yes. So now we're going to go into some of the more area-specific legends, because like I said, it's kind of... There's different places that have legends, and they kind of have different origins. Okay, so we're going to start with Maryland. The deaths that have occurred in the Prince George's County woods in Maryland are often attributed to Goatman, as it's said to take refuge in those woods, specifically in a makeshift shelter, apparently.
Huh.
So these stories there originated in the early 1970s, and it followed the disappearances and deaths of multiple dogs in the area.
Oh,
Though,
that makes me sad.
Though people who don't believe in the Goatman think that due to the condition of the dog's remains, it was more likely that they were killed by passing trains on the train tracks.
Oh.
So, like I said, it was like popularized in the 1970s, but the Goatman legend did begin a long time previous to that. But it was in the 1970s that we were talking about the dogs, and one of the dogs' name was Ginger, and it was found with no head.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
And there was a reporter named Ivan Goldberg who wrote about it, and he said, quote, Ginger, a sprightly mongrel who resembled a German shepherd, has been decapitated cleanly at the neck. The body is not found. But I don't know if that means the head wasn't found or the body wasn't found.
Probably the body.
So, one of the two wasn't found.
Crazy.
And another article in 1971 was called Resident Spear Goatman Lives, Dog Found Decapitated in Old Bowie, and that connected the deceased dog with the Goatman, saying that a group of teenage girls had heard strange noises and had seen a large creature on the night that the dog had disappeared, and that there were other sightings that night of an animal-like creature walking on its hind legs.
Ugh.
So some variations of the legend here say that the Goatman was once a scientist who worked at the Beltsville Agricultural Center, and in this version, he was doing an experiment on goats that backfired, and the scientist mutated into a half-man, half-goat creature, and then he began aggressively attacking cars in that vicinity. Though it's also claimed that it could have been a lonely, angry goat herder who went berserk after finding his beloved goats dead due to teenagers coming and killing his herd.
Oh.
So then in another variation in that area, the Goatman was an old hermit who lived in the woods and often could be seen walking alone at night along Fletchertown Road. So those are kind of the stories and the origins of the Maryland Goatman.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're moving to Texas.
Okay.
So in Texas,
there is Old Alton Bridge, which is also known as Goatman's Bridge, and it's an iron truss bridge connecting the Texas cities of Denton and Copper Canyon. It was built in 1884. So, this one makes me sad. So, the legend surrounding this bridge is actually based on the legend of a black goat farmer whose name was Oscar Washburn, and it's said that he moved his family to a residence just north of the bridge. And a few years later, he displayed a sign on the bridge reading, "This way to the goat man," since, he was a goat farmer, clever, go this way for the goat man,
Right.
Advertising. He's a smart man. But then the success of a black man was still unwelcome to many because Texas and the 1930s. And
that makes me so sad.
A black man who was successful. So, in August of 1938, Klansmen in the local government crossed the bridge and kidnapped Washburn. They hung a noose on Old Alton Bridge, and after securing it around his neck, threw him over the side. But when they looked down to see if he had died, the noose was empty. So, in a panic, they returned to his family home and slaughtered his wife and children.
Oh my God.
So, I hate that. I told you. God. I hate this one.
Humans are the worst of all.
Literally the worst. So, locals warn that if you cross the bridge at night without headlights, as the Klansmen were said to have done, you will be met on the other side by the Goat Man. Ghostly figures and strange lights are said to have appeared in the surrounding woods, as well as reports of visitors being touched, grabbed, and having rocks thrown at them. So, obviously, this story is not about, the cryptid Goat Man, It's just a man. But it's still, Goatman's Bridge is, a popular legend, so I wanted to obviously put it in here, too. Mm-hmm. Though, according to some research into Denton's local lore, there was no person named Oscar Washburn living in the area around the time of his alleged murder, nor were there any reports of lynching. However, there were likely lots of cases of lynchings that went unreported during this area, because it was the Jim Crow era, and it was very violent, and people got away with doing horrible things, so...
Literally got away with murder.
Yeah, so the fact that it's not reported, I don't necessarily think that means that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And even if that didn't happen, it happened to people all the time.
Right.
So, fucking don't even have words.
Racist.
I hate it here. So, some say that a demonic presence was brought to the bridge by the murder, and that it's also haunted by evil spirits spawned by local occultists who have reportedly performed sacrificial rituals in the woods. So, so some people believe that has caused Goatman's appearance. So some people believe... So there's that story about Oscar, but then some people also believe that the sacrificial rituals and the occultists have actually summoned a Goatman, think the actual cryptid as well. So, according to one local police officer, nearby pet stores at a time, I don't know if this is still accurate or if this is true or whatever, but had to stop selling cats because so many cats were being found slaughtered in a ritualistic manner in that area.
Just destroy me.
I know. So, witnesses have reported sightings of a goat-like beast with glowing eyes, and others have claimed to hear sounds like hooves galloping on the bridge behind them, and a growling voice ordering them to get off the bridge.
Ugh.
There have also been accounts of people being attacked by the alleged half-goat demon, with at least one person visiting the bridge with a friend claiming they heard the growling voice, and after the witness ran away, their friend, who had remained on the bridge, appeared to be dragged to the edge and thrown into the river by an unknown entity.
Ugh. I feel like this is the most, scary, honestly.
That's why I saved it for last.
Yeah.
So then we have another story in Texas, and it's called the Lake Worth Monster, but it's often described as part man, part goat with scales and long clawed fingers.
Ugh.
And these sightings started in July of 1969, and one story included the monster landing on a man's car after jumping out of a tree. And then there's another story where it threw a car tire at people. I'm like, where did you get a car tire?
And also, car tires are not light.
Yeah, he's strong. It's a strong cryptid. You know what I mean? So newspapers published a photograph apparently taken of the creature by Alan Plaster, and locals began driving out at night to the lake to look at it. And Alan described it as a man-sized white fur ball, which...
That sounds friendly.
Kind of weird. But police investigated and found no evidence to support the monster in the Lake Worth and Greer Island area. But the story spread, and it's like a very common campfire story that summer camps and counselors told children, quote, "Listen carefully, and you'll hear his cry on clear nights like tonight," end quote. So now we're moving to Kentucky.
Turkey.
So the Pope Lick monster is part man, part goat, and part sheep, and appears as a human-goat hybrid with the grotesquely deformed body of a man. It has fur-covered goat legs and an alabaster-skinned face with an alpine nose and wide-set eyes.
Huh.
Short, sharp horns protrude from the forehead, nestled in long, greasy hair that matches the color of the fur on their legs. So, this goat man is reported to live beneath a railroad trestle bridge over Pope Lick Creek, which is in the Fisherville neighborhood of Louisville, Kentucky.
I've been there.
Oh, okay. I was like, why are you making that face? So there are, I got Kentucky in.
And yeah,
There are numerous urban legends about this creature's origins and its methods that it uses to claim its victims. So some say that it uses hypnosis or voice mimicry to lure trespassers onto the trestle to meet their death before an incoming train. So just lure them onto the bridge and then a train would come and run them over.
Yeah.
So others say the monster jumps down from the trestles onto the roofs of cars, passing beneath it.
That's interesting that it has to, like, there's trains, because, like, the dogs that were killed in Maryland.
I know.
It's like train. It's train central.
Train Central. So others say that it attacks its victims with a bloodstained axe, and that the very sight of the creature is so unsettling that those who see it while walking across the high trestle are driven to leap off of the bridge. So when it comes to origins, some people say that it was a, quote, circus freak who vowed revenge after being mistreated, and another version say that it's a monster that escaped after a train derailed on the trestle. So there's another version that is commonly told by locals that claim the monster is really the twisted, reincarnated form of a farmer who sacrificed goats in exchange for satanic powers. Sad fact, this legend has obviously turned this area into a really common place for legend tripping, if you've heard of that word, which is, where you kind of go on trips to,
Right.
Go places where there's legends.
Yeah.
Many deaths and accidents have been attributed to people coming to the bridge to seek out a monster. There is an 8-foot fence to keep people out because it is a heavy freight train line and it's used several times a day, so it's dangerous to go there. So on April 23rd, 2016, a 26-year-old tourist from Ohio died after being hit by a train while searching for the monster, and her boyfriend managed to survive by hanging onto the side of a trestle.
Oh, wow.
In 1988, a 17-year-old boy was killed by a train and another boy was injured. In 1994, a man was killed by a train. In 2000, a 19-year-old fell from the bridge and died after encountering a train. On May 26, 2019, a 15-year-old girl was found dead on the tracks beside the trestle. Basically, I get being curious because I would want to go see some of these places, but this one seems like a big maybe not situation because it's just it's not just a bridge, it's literally train tracks. And it's used so often that clearly a lot of people are going there, and I don't think you remember all the time how fast trains move.
Yeah.
So you go oh, I'll see it in plenty of time. Not necessarily, and I think that's sad. In 1960, a group of 14 hikers went to the mountainous area of Louisville, Kentucky, and after a few hours of hiking, they faced a goat-like man. So it pounced over them before they could do anything, and only one hiker remained untouched by the goat man. He claimed that it gave off demonic energy and looked unearthly. It ripped his 13 friends to pieces in the blink of an eye and ran away back into the woods. So, There's that tale. And, 14 hikers is a big group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know you can say, there's only one survivor, so it's not like a story where there's a bunch of people saying the same thing. But then also, what happened to the 13 other people? Unless he killed all of them. But then he killed one person. You know what I mean? He killed 13 people as one person? I don't know. And then there's also stories of the goat man preying on couples who came to lovers' lanes and often hid and waited until the couples got busy. And then I made a funny And I said, gotta get them suction cup microphones while you're at it, a la Monster of Florence. Remember the suction cup microphones?
Yeah.
And then he would attack them, tearing them to pieces. The last story that I have about the Goat Man is about a group of teenagers who went camping in the woods and got terrified by the creepy presence of the Goat Man between them, in shapes and forms of other group members while assimilating into the group. And then they could barely detect who he was, but they felt a creepy presence with them the entire time. And then weird things continued to happen on their trip, so then they were compelled to end it early and leave. So then they left.
Good for them.
And that's what I have on the Goat Man.
That's the creepiest one, I think, and like I feel like that's the one that has the most ability to be real. I don't know if it's like a legit cryptid, but definitely something demonic.
Yeah, exactly. That's same. I agree. And I think Mothman has vibes as well.
Yeah. I like Mothman because I like the idea of like, I don't know if it causes bad things to happen, but I like the idea of it serving as like an omen.
I know. I do like omen things. And the whole bridge collapse and how multiple people saw it beforehand. Yeah. I mean,
creepy.
It has omen vibes for sure.
Yeah.
I think those two are the...
Yeah.
Well, the Wendigo, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess technically, if I'm thinking about the ones that we talked about today, the ones that could be like closer to real, I would say Goatman, Mothman, Wendigo.
Yeah.
Like the Yeti and the Kraken, I'm kind of like, you could just be a bear, or you could just be a squid.
Right.
Etc.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't have like super dark vibes. But the other ones, I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah. So, cryptids.
Cryptids, love them.
We did it. We had our first collab in like 2 months.
Yeah, I love it.
I love a collab. We should do them more often.
Yeah, it's fun.
We should try to do them like way more often.
Yeah.
So we could obviously do more of these in the future if y'all liked it, because there's so many cryptids. Obviously, we kind of grabbed the more popular ones right off the bat, but I mean, there's still so many.
Yeah.
So many. So we could make
And if
this
you
a
have any
series.
other ideas of like things that we could collab with,
Fill out our Google form. It's on our link tree. Yeah, that's all. So yeah, follow us on our social medias. They're linked in the show notes, and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you do, we'll read them, and then maybe, if possible, if you get in contact with us on any of our socials, you can request an episode, and then you can have your own episode, which is really fun.
Yes.
Ask our BFF and first reviewer.
Jamie.
Jamie knows. Jamie thought it was fun. That's all we have today.
Yep.
So thanks for listening.
And we are
Mysteriosities.
Mysteriosities.